Are we missing something? Does resequencing make a difference? Maybe in this case. But even if it does, how do I apply it in a normal company? Can it be possible for me to come to a fundamental decision? How are you going to find in your operations which is an active constraint? The approach to constraint-based thinking is this, that it is very important for you to take into consideration your active constraint to make an effective decision. Many companies ignore this. On the other side, just because Q as a product has got a high margin, it's quite likely that the marketing department is going to discount 2%, 3% and get extra volumes of Q. On the other side, just because it's a profitable product and it's high priced, the commission a marketing person would get would also be higher. So he will land up selling Q more. Whereas our calculations say that if we focus on P more, we will get or we will make more money. All our systems are designed to sell more of Q. Everybody knows in the company which is a profitable product. Margins, everybody's talking about cost, everybody's talking about margins. But all those wisdoms do not seem to lead us in the right direction. So, what is something which is going to help us? Let us demystify this. Our approach will be to find a rule which, when applied to n number of products, still help us in finding out which are going to be my profitable products based on my current active constraint. The normal practice would be, okay, let's find how to get rid of this constraint. The simple thing would be, let's find somebody who's got machine B and offload some of my work. The second item would be what the young engineer came and told me. Sir, I can increase the time the material spends on resource C and reduce the time it spends on B, which I saw made me profit. That could be another approach to increasing your profit. The more I relax the constraint or the stress on machine B, the more money I make. This is the approach. So if I outsource or offload only on machine B, I can make more, and since my operating expenses are covered, I make more profit. But what happens if I offload machine C? And find out. And let's go and come to a conclusion. What is the driving principle in understanding which product gives you money? We will need to make some more calculations. Let's take the contributions or throughputs that product P and Q give the company and see how much of throughput the company generates per constrained minute. Since B is the limiting factor for me to make more money, the rule says find out how much of throughput does the company make per minute of the resource constraint. For Q, I take 30 minutes of my constrained resource and make 60 rupees of throughput, which means per minute of my constrained resource, I am generating 2 rupees of throughput if I manufacture Q. Let's go to P. For P, I make a throughput of 45 rupees. And for these 45 rupees, I use 15 minutes of resource B. Per minute throughput of resource B for making P is 3. So, every minute that I use to make P generates me 3 rupees. Every minute I use to make Q generates 2 minutes. That is why P is a more profitable product. The profit of your company is governed by the active constraint. You have to take into play the constraint. And depending on the play of this constraint, the profit of the product is decided. Or rather, how much of profit will that product add to your bottom line is going to be decided by how the active constraint behaves for that product. So we have found that if you make product P first and then Q with the same available resources, with the same operating expense, we will end up making a profit of 300 rupees. But we still have a bit of demand which is unsatisfied, and this demand was not satisfied because we did not have capacity. At such points, it is prudent to also analyze that should we go in and invest for some additional capacity of B. Now B cannot be bought in 0.5 or 0.25 or 0.75. If we go in and buy B, it will add or it will double the capacity of B. That means an additional one more unit of B will make the total available minutes for resource B 4800 instead of 2400 right now. Any such addition of capacity will lead to investments or increase in operating expenses. Let us assume for our discussion that after all these calculations, the finance department tells us that our operating expense will go up by 600 rupees weekly. The earlier figure of 6,000 per week will now be 6,600 rupees per week. 10% increase by just adding a machine or a new set of skills. Okay, we can live with that. So now let us see if we should invest in this machine or not. And what is the criteria for selecting this investment? It should actually translate into bottom line improvement. No hypothetical situations. No assumptions that, sir, it will be more efficient. Now we will not have a problem. The capacity constraint would have been resolved. If the capacity constraint is resolved, the bottom line should go up. So indirectly, the measurement of correct investment is any money that you put should actually increase the bottom line. Let's go back and check. After I buy one more B, my operating expense is now sitting at 6,600 rupees a week. I have a demand for 100 P and 50 Qs. Now, since there is no capacity constraint, the whole demand will be satisfied. So if the whole demand gets satisfied, I will land up making a throughput of 45 rupees of throughput per unit of P, that is 4,500. Now, all the quantity of Q can be sold. There is a demand for 50 Q and they give me a throughput of 60. This will add up to 3,000. So the total throughput I get is 7,500. What is my operating expense? 6,600. So the profit I'm left with is 900. Can you see this? Your profit has tripled, even though there was a 10% increase in your operating expense. It is these kind of leverages you will find if you are putting your money at the right place. Profit has gone up three times, from 300 to 900. Operating expense has also gone up from 6,000 to 6,600, which is substantial. So now we need to understand one more thing, that if you are putting money and the money is put at the constraint, and we de-bottleneck the constraint, you will have your bottom line going up exponentially. From here we can take another hint that if at all we make investments and they are in increasing the capacity of the bottleneck, your bottom lines will constantly keep going up. But on the other hand, if based on some other calculations you make investments for efficiencies or increase in output at non-constraints, this kind of impact will not be felt on a bottom line and indirectly on return on investment. We have a department which works on increasing capacity, and now we are well informed where exactly to increase capacity. If we have to invest money, where should we invest? At B. And we know that whatever money we invest on B is going to directly impact my bottom line. If we had invested in C, it would have been less utilized. But if we invested B, we know that we require extra minutes on B. We are already short of nearly 600 minutes on B. But investments are not very easy decisions. If in case you decide to invest in B, it will just not give you 600 minutes. It will give you 2400 minutes. One other way of looking at this constraint is, why not find an old machine? Why not find another machine which may not be as efficient as B, but at least it can take off some load of B? For example, you are spending 30 minutes to make one queue. Out of this 30 minutes, 15 minutes are used on raw material 2. You can find another machine in your company which, instead of taking 15 minutes, even takes 30 minutes to make one raw material 2. Though it's very slow, but it will add extra minutes available to the resource B, and this extra minutes is nothing but profit. That's what we saw. 1 minute saved increased your profit by reducing your loss.
The loss, which was of 300 rupees, got converted into 315 rupees additional profit, and the final profit of 15 rupees.
You reversed the loss and then made profit. 1 minute. This can be done by very low level of investment. Second thing it is telling us is, please, if you are not able to increase the profit by investment, do not invest. It is an investment in a resource which will add capacity in a place where it is not required. What kind of a decision making will force you to make such an investment? An investment made in a place where it is not required. Such decisions, if taken on efficiency based, could lead to a wrong investment. Suppose somebody comes to you and talks to you about resource A. Resource A is loaded for 2000 minutes, and he says, sir, I have a calculation which will increase the efficiency by 20% if we add this investment inside, and the cost will go down. He comes, you invest, and on paper you show that yes, the efficiency has gone up by 20%. So what does that mean? What was being produced in 2000 minutes is now being produced in 1600 minutes. An increase of 20% in efficiency. Did this increase in efficiency actually increase your profit? No, it did not. Why was it so? All these efficiency increase efforts were put in a place which was actually not limiting your profit making ability. to go mad after efficiency calculations may many times lead to this erroneous decision making. You have made the investment, the efficiencies have come up to the level, but your profit has not gone up. In other words, your return on investment has not happened. But even if you find a machine which does not show the efficiencies, but takes some load of the constrained resources, as I said earlier, you could have bought a second grade machine for which the processing time was double that of what machine B did. That would add to your bottom line instantly. If that were the case, the return on investment would start immediately. So if you invest at B with low levels of efficiency, you still have a return on investments. But if you invest in resource A with very high efficiency levels, the return on investment does not take place. This is one of the biggest learning of constraint-based approach, and especially when a constraint in manufacturing is active. An active constraint in manufacturing truly limits your ability to make profit. We also saw by this example, we didn't make any investments, but we made profit by just resequencing. That resequencing was not based arbitrarily. It was based on a logic. So without making any investments, I turned a loss-making company into a profit-making company. So can it happen that if we follow this rule, we can find out which products not to make and use those minutes available on my constrained resources to make a product which is going to give me profit? If the throughput that a company makes per minute of my constrained resource is higher, I would prefer that. This simple approach arms a small company or a big company with many other abilities than just selecting the product. You know how to make a pitch. When you go to make a sale, you don't have to do too much calculations. You just find out whether this particular product is going to use my resource or not. And if that resource is the constrained resource, you know how much of throughput has to come per constrained minute. And if this particular product does not go through your constraint, okay, anything that you take or anything which you can sell from a product which does not go into your constraint will add to your bottom line. Suddenly the question of product mix seems to be simplified. This rule applies to whether you are a small scale, micro, medium scale or a large scale company. An active constraint will decide how much of profit will you make. An active constraint will decide where you have to invest. There seems to be certain misconceptions that have got created in our minds because of cost calculations and formulas which tell us what profit will be made, irrespective of understanding whether there's a limiting factor or is there a constraint in play while we are making these assumptions of profit. As a manufacturing organization, one has to constantly strive towards removing these misconceptions. Let's go back to example. We still have unsatisfied demand in terms of P. We want to grow, and we have also understood that making an investment at the right place will send the additional revenue or throughput straight to my bottom line. That means there is a huge chance of increasing my profits by making investments at the right place. And this right place seems to be the constraint.